All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling, well, it's called the Devil's Bible.
Yeah, that's it's not just a catchy name either.
Right.
We're talking about this massive book, Codex Gigas, from the 13th century. So big, it actually takes two people to lift it.
Whoa. Okay, that's a serious book.
It is, and it's got everything from, well, the usual biblical stuff to some pretty, let's just say, unusual content.
All right, now you've really got me hooked. So is this all like spooky stories and legends, or is there some actual history behind this whole Devil's Bible thing?
Honestly, it's a mix, fascinating blend of both. But to really get the Codex Gigas, we got to go back in time a bit.
Okay, time travel, I'm in.
So imagine 13th century Bohemia. Super religious place, but also a lot of political turmoil. Yeah. And that's where our mysterious book pops up.
All right, so we've got the setting. How does a book in this setting end up with a nickname like the Devil's Bible?
Right, well, that's where the legend kicks in. The story goes, there was this monk, right? And he was facing execution, broke his vows or something. Desperate, makes a pact with the devil himself.
A deal with the devil. Classic.
Yeah. And in exchange for his life, he promises to create this huge manuscript in one night. This crazy compendium of all human knowledge.
One night. Okay, that's a bit much, even with some demonic assistance. I mean, a book that size.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes the Codex Giga so mysterious. I mean, just the fact that it was created at all has had people speculating for centuries. Like, the handwriting is crazy consistent the whole way through. Experts say a normal person would take like decades of nonstop writing to get that level of consistency.
So either we had a superscribed monk or something else is going on here.
Right. And speaking of things going on, there's that famous illustration, the devil himself. Takes up a whole page.
Yeah, gotta ask about that. What's the deal with that illustration?
Well, it's unique. You just don't see that in other religious manuscripts from that time. Not that prominent, at least. Definitely not that detailed. It's almost like the artist knew him personally. And the realism is, it's unsettling.
Given the whole pact with the devil thing, maybe they did. Okay, but it's more than just the devil, right? There's other strange stuff in this book, like instructions for exorcism.
You got it. And this is where things get even more interesting. Codex Gigas, it's not just a religious book. It's a weird mix, sacred and, well, maybe not so sacred. You've got biblical texts, historical chronicles, and then bam, you've got these detailed guides on kicking out demons, prayers, rituals, even diagrams.
Okay, now that's what I call forbidden knowledge. Were these exorcisms, were they like normal back then, or was this fringe stuff?
That's a good question. I mean, exorcisms were a part of the whole religious scene back then. But the detail in the Codex Gigas, the specific rituals, it suggests something more, something deeper, maybe even specialized knowledge.
Like a secret demon-busting handbook.
Kind of. Cool. But yeah, also kind of terrifying. And hold on, there's more. It's also got all this advanced medical knowledge.
Yep.
Whole section devoted to medical treatments and like herbal remedies. And the crazy part is some of it was like way ahead of its time. They're describing surgeries using herbs in ways people wouldn't figure out for centuries.
Okay, so is this the devil's influence? Or maybe like lost knowledge from some ancient civilization?
It's easy to jump to the devil, right? But honestly, medieval medicine was more advanced than people think. Yeah, it had religious stuff and superstition, but they were figuring things out. They were learning about the body.
So maybe this medical stuff wasn't demonic, just knowledge that got lost or forgotten over time. Okay, my head is spinning. We got this giant book, mysterious origins, biblical stuff, demons, exorcisms, advanced medicine. There's got to be more,
Oh,
right?
there's plenty more. We haven't even gotten to the curse that supposedly follows the Codex Gigas, or the weird things people have experienced around it, or the missing pages.
Wait, hold up. Missing pages. Okay, now you're really talking. What happened to them? What do people think they might have had in them?
That's a question that has bothered people for ages. The missing pages are, well, they're just another piece of the Codex Gigas puzzle. But to get into that, we need to talk about the book's, well, its journey through time.
Missing pages, huh? Makes you wonder what could have been so juicy that they had to, like, vanish.
Right. It's like another layer of weirdness to the whole Codex Gigas mystery. Some folks think maybe the missing parts had knowledge that was just too much, too dangerous, maybe? Like super dark rituals or spells someone decided the world wasn't ready for.
Ooh, a conspiracy. I love it. So we're talking, like, intentional censorship. Someone went in and was like, nope, this page has got to go.
It's possible, yeah. Think about it. This book, it was passed around monasteries, kings, not hard to imagine that at some point someone got their hands on it and thought, uh-oh, some of this stuff, better not let it get out.
Makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
this book, it's kind of walking that line between like straight up religion and something else, like having a secret folder in your computer, but medieval style.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it shows you the whole context of this Codex Gigas thing. It wasn't just like prayers and Bible stories. It was knowledge. It was what people were thinking about back then, their spiritual side, the stuff they were figuring out. And in that world, yeah, some things like exorcisms, weird herbs for healing, that could make people nervous.
Like the Codex Gigas is giving us a peek into the underground side of medieval beliefs, the stuff they didn't put in the official church pamphlets.
Exactly. But that brings up another question. We've got this legend, the weird contents, the missing pages. But why? What was the point of this whole book? Why make something so huge and complicated in the first place?
Yeah, good question. It's not exactly light reading.
Right. Well, some people think it was supposed to be like a giant encyclopedia, everything in one place. Scripture, medicine, magic, the whole shebang.
Like a medieval Wikipedia, but like way fancier and definitely not online.
Exactly. And the fact that it's got like everything in it, it makes that theory kind of convincing. You've got Bible stuff in Latin, history, medicine, even a grammar section and a calendar. It's like they wanted to put all of human knowledge into one book.
Ambitious. So who was supposed to read this thing? Everyone.
Probably not. It was huge, and the stuff in it was pretty complex. Most likely it was for monks maybe to teach them or for scholars who needed to look things up.
Not exactly beach reading material,
Mhm.
but still, it's wild that they even thought to put all that different stuff together in one place. Says something about how curious they were, how much they wanted to learn things, even back then.
Absolutely. And it makes you rethink that whole Dark Ages thing. The Codex Gigas shows us that medieval times, it wasn't all just religion and superstition. They were finding old texts, coming up with new ideas. There was a lot going on.
It's like we're getting a glimpse inside their heads, all the different stuff they were thinking about, the good, the bad, the confusing.
And that mix, that's what makes the Codex Gigas so cool. It's light and dark, sacred and maybe not so sacred. It's human, trying to figure out this crazy world we live in.
Well said. But speaking of crazy, we kind of skipped over that whole curse thing.
Oh yeah, the Codex Gigas curse. A good story, almost as good as the book itself. Now we're getting into the unexplained, the legends, the stuff that gives you goosebumps.
Okay, I'm listening. What kind of bad luck are we talking about here?
Well, the curse is linked to certain events. Like,
Yeah.
they say that the Swedish army, after they took the Codex from Prague during that big war, the 30 Years' War, well, after that, they started losing battles left and right.
So stealing the devil's book, maybe not the best idea. But is it a curse or just like bad luck?
Right. Who knows? And the stories don't stop there. Even now, people say weird things happen around the book.
Oh, okay, I'm really listening now. Like,
People say the temperature drops suddenly where the Codex is kept, that there's this feeling of, like, being watched. Some even say they see shadows, figures moving around.
all right, now that's a little creepy. But isn't it possible that it's all in their heads? I mean, if you think a book is cursed, you're going to be looking for spooky stuff, right?
You're right. It's all about how our minds work. Sometimes an object gets a reputation, a spooky one, and that changes how we experience it.
So is it the book that's cursed or is it the stories we tell about it?
Tough to say. Chicken or the egg, right. And the Codex Gigas, with all its mystery, the weird stuff in it, the pages that are gone, it's the perfect setup for those spooky stories.
You know what? I think the Codex Gigas is less about giving us answers and more about making us ask questions about history, about what people believed, about how much we can even know, and maybe even about what's real and what's not.
And that's what makes it so interesting. It's like a mirror showing us our own curiosity, what we're afraid of, our need to understand the things we don't get.
It reminds us that sometimes the best stories are the ones that leave you with more questions at the end. It's weird, right? We've gone through all this stuff about the Codex Gigas, the legends, the secrets, the supposed curse, but I still keep thinking, like, what does it all mean?
I know what you mean. It doesn't really give you answers, does it? It's a book that makes you think, makes you ask your own questions and deal with the stuff we just don't know.
Like, we've been on this crazy scavenger hunt, finding clues, but the full picture, it's still out there somewhere.
Maybe that's the whole point. Maybe the Codex Gigas is less about telling us stuff and more about getting us to ask, about knowledge, about what we can even understand, about how faith and logic fit together.
It makes me think about those people way back when who made this thing. Spent all that time writing it all down, even the stuff that maybe they shouldn't have, the stuff people might have been afraid of.
Yeah, it shows you something about being human, right?
Yeah.
We want to know things, even if they're scary, even if they don't make sense.
It's like holding a piece of history, you know, feeling how old it is and realizing that people back then, they were wondering about the same things we are now.
And that connection to the past, it's powerful stuff. The Codex Gigas, it's like a time machine. It lets us see the world through their eyes, a world that's so different from ours.
It makes you feel small in a good way. Like we're just a tiny part of this huge story that's been going on for who knows how long.
And that story is just like the book itself, full of surprises, good and bad, beautiful and really weird.
So here we are at the end of our deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
I feel amazed, but also like there's this big question mark hanging over everything. The Codex Gigas, it doesn't fit in any box, you know? It keeps us guessing, even after all this time.
And that's what makes it so cool, right? It reminds us that there's so much out there that we don't get, that we might never get.
Maybe it's better that way. Some things, maybe they're better left as mysteries. It lets us use our imaginations, keeps us curious.
Maybe the real magic of this whole thing, the Codex Gigas, is that it shows us how much there still is to find out, to explore, to think about.
Oh, well said. So to everyone listening, one last thought.
Yeah.
Keep looking, keep asking questions, and don't ever lose that sense of wonder. The world is full of secrets waiting for us to find them. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Codex Gigas.
Until next time, stay curious, and remember, the most amazing discoveries are often the ones we least expect.